and we're into week 2 now of our celebration, should we say. So I'm delighted to say that I'm joined by 2 brilliant athletes, Tamsin Addison, who competes in Para Dressage and Equestrian, and Donnacha McCarthy, who is a triathlete. So thanks for joining us, guys. Thanks for taking the time out.
Thank you.
Morning, Colin.
Good morning.
Donnacha.
So I'll start with yourself, Tamsin. You joined us for the team conference back in October, and then you joined us again for a chat in November. It's a very different time to what we expect now, and we all had hopes to be in Tokyo at the moment, but obviously that's changed. Could you tell us how you've been since then, and how specifically your sport has been affected, obviously, by COVID-19?
I haven't competed properly now since January. And if I compare that to this time last year, I think by this time last year I'd done 4 or 5 internationals. So from that point of view, instead of going out every month to a different country with the horses and traveling lots, we've been at home doing training, but there's been no extrinsic validation of where we are, because there's been no one to compare myself against except for myself, really.
Okay.
So it's been a very different feel to the year.
And you've still been training. Has restrictions hampered any of that training? Or
I'm very lucky because I have my horses at home. So even when we're locked down, I can still train. So from that point of view, it's been great. A chance to get back to basics, but training every day and working away. And
how are Donna, Siesta and Fahrenheit keeping?
They're great. They're great. I think they've really benefited actually from the quieter year. So from that point of view, although we were working towards Tokyo, it's been good for them to have a quieter year. The good thing from my point of view is that they are in peak form at the moment. So it proves to me that I can get them ready for a particular date, because they're feeling really, really good. Frustrating that we're not going anywhere, but great that actually the plan has worked, I think, and it's now a case of delivering for this time next year. So
like many of athletes that would be hitting their peak now, the horses are as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So brilliant. So Donnacha, bring you in. So how has 2020 been? Obviously, a whole host of events have been cancelled, but how has your training been, and how have you adapted through this?
It's similar to Tamsin there. I haven't competed internationally now since October last year. So I did have a few races planned for early March, but they were obviously cancelled last minute. So from a training point of view, really, during COVID, I'm a blind athlete, so a lot of my training I do indoors anyway. So from that point of view, it hasn't been, I suppose, a major change for me. The only thing really different is that the pool's being closed, so I wasn't able to swim, and probably swimming being the weakest of my 3 disciplines. That was a little bit tough to deal with, but but I suppose that gave me the focus to work on my bike and my run sides of my sport then as well. So I'm quite new to endurance sport as well. I've only been competing for the last 3 years, so I kind of treated COVID really as just an opportunity to work on my aerobic base and keep getting stronger and fitter, and I was just able to work then on the other 2 disciplines, which is probably the good thing about triathlon, that if one thing is taken out, you have 2 other sports to focus on. So there's never really a dull moment,
You've got your options, yeah. And since restrictions have been lifted in Ireland, Donnacha, have you seen your training kind of increase, or has it stayed the same since?
It's pretty much stayed the same. So from I suppose there's just a lot of uncertainty around races and what races have been going ahead. So I haven't been building or peaking towards a certain race, so it's more about continuing what I was doing during COVID. And obviously with the pools reopening now last month, I've been able to get back in the water and start working on my swim once again. So I suppose it's me as well as a blind athlete. For doing any training outdoors, I'm reliant on a guide to get on the tandem with me or to run with me. And obviously, if I'm tethered to a guide that's not complying with social distancing rules, so that did make things a little bit tricky. But Vision Sports Ireland and Sport Ireland bought a really good initiative called Passport, which enabled a guide to train with an athlete for sport, and as long as they're complying with all other COVID guidelines. And that just enabled me to get out and train in a safe manner and get back out on the road. So that's been absolutely great.
Brilliant stuff, yeah. And so, Tamsin, you obviously there was events for 2020. Have any of those events been rescheduled for this year or else into 2021? Probably most of them have been, have they?
There is an international in the UK in October.
Okay.
But given we're already qualified, I'm not convinced that it's the right thing in my plan for me and my horses to do. I'm really enjoying being able to get back to basics and unpick some of the things that need really good work. And peaking towards a competition in October doesn't really fit in with that. So I think it's much more likely that I'll get out at the beginning of next year and start from there. Obviously, as a team, I don't think we're going to do that international in October. There's no reason for the team to do it. We have 2 spots for Tokyo. So I think from a team point of view, we would be better focusing on the beginning of next year and working from there.
Brilliant stuff. And how about yourself, Donnacha? Have any of those events being rescheduled? I'd say most of them are into 2021 at this stage, are they?
Yeah, so there was some internationals planned for kind of early to mid-October, but they've been postponed now till 2021. So really, from my perspective, like I haven't qualified yet for the games, so qualification will start back up probably January 2021 till June 2021. So that calendar hasn't really been released yet, so it's kind of just a waiting game really to see what races are going to be on the calendar, what races I'm going to target. But I'm absolutely raring to go anyway and start the qualification period again.
Brilliant.
Gosh, that's really hard for you.
It is. It's a waiting game, but like as you said, Tamsin, like it's kind of about at the moment just bringing things really back to basics, you know. So it's kind of giving you an opportunity to focus on the small things and the small aspects of your sport and stuff you usually wouldn't really have the time to work on during your typical race season. Like, so from that point of view, it's probably benefited me in many ways, you know.
That's interesting because I found exactly the same thing. The ability to have a long period of time knowing you're not going to compete has made a real difference to what you can do, particularly from my point of view with a horse. You can afford to take some risks and start to retrain some stuff without feeling that in the next couple of weeks you're going to need to go out and perform. So that's made a big difference to me.
Yeah, brilliant.
It should be a hectic year for sport events in 2021, hopefully. Which
yeah, fingers crossed. We'll wait and see now. So
yeah.
And like you could, many interviews with athletes, there was a sense of relief when the game was finally cancelled. Obviously, because they were wondering whether it would be, whether it wouldn't. Was that the same for you, Tamsin?
Definitely. I as we got closer and closer to the point where they cancelled, we were all thinking, I don't know how this is going to work. And particularly with the logistics of getting horses to Tokyo and getting the feed out and getting the hay out and wondering about how you're going to get all the kit shipped and where everybody's going to stay, all those logistics, the longer you go without putting anything firm in, the more uncomfortable we all feel about not having a set plan. So it was the not knowing that's the hardest. As soon as it's cancelled, then you start focusing on the next year and thinking, well, actually, we'll make some changes based on that. But not having something to work to is really hard. Yeah,
and like many athletes, they just have to worry about themselves and a small team, but you have to worry about a horse to bring over to Tokyo, which
is
quite complicated. Yeah. And how about you, Donnacha?
Yeah, like very similar to Tamsin. Like obviously I haven't qualified, so like for me again it's the mental side of it and the uncertainty around okay what's going ahead and what's not, because I was still reliant on some qualification races to go ahead. So when the decision was being made, okay, whether we're going to go ahead with Tokyo or not, that put quite a lot of stress and a lot of pressure on me, because I was trying to see, okay, what qualification races are actually going to go ahead here, and what can I attend, what can I not attend. So I suppose again, like as Tamsin said, once it was confirmed to be cancelled, it was almost like a sense of relief, because you were able to kind of, well, not sit back and relax, but as in, I suppose it made things a little bit easier and a little bit clearer in terms of where you can refocus and what you can actually work on then. So like I have a really good team behind me with Triathlon Ireland and my coaches, and obviously they were always keeping me in the loop in terms of what was going on at an international level with the International Triathlon Union and stuff like that in terms of what races were going ahead. But yeah, I think when that confirmation finally came in that was being postponed to next year, it was almost a little sense of relief in a way, you know.
Yeah. And so will your training program be a reset and work towards peaking next year, or will it be the same as this time last year?
Yeah, like it's funny because like for me, the qualification period was meant to be a year, so June 2019 to June 2020. So it's going to probably kick back in now in January 2021. So it's basically going to look exactly like this year was supposed to look, I suppose.
Yeah.
So I suppose just for the winter now, I'll just go back into off-season training and base training, and probably after Christmas then start kind of increasing the intensity and getting the body ready for racing again, you know. So at the moment it's kind of a lot of high volume, low intensity stuff just to maintain the fitness and improve the base. And obviously there's no point of peaking for a race now that isn't going to go ahead, you know.
Yeah. How about yourself, Tamsin?
It really depends on what the selection events are. If the selection events are the same events as they were planned to be this year, then it'll be very similar. Where I'm also working on skills training. So we'll carry on working on that. And as soon as we know which the selection events are, then I will obviously peak both horses to try and get the best I possibly can out of them for those events.
Okay, brilliant stuff. So Tokyo 2020 qualification, the pathway, what does that look like? Obviously, Tamsin, you mentioned that 2 have qualified already. How does that look now for 2021 as well?
We've been told that the qualification spots will be carried through. So that means Ireland's got 2 spots for 21, which is brilliant. And it'll be a selection process to see who goes. So that's why the selection events will be really important for everybody.
Okay, brilliant. How about yourself, Donnacha?
Yeah. So it's quite similar. So like probably from between January and June next year. So qualification period ends in June. So there'll be a number of races between January and June, and I have to compete in a minimum of 3 of those races. And depending on where I place in those races, you get a certain amount of points, and then that ranks you against the other athletes in your class. So it's a little bit complicated, but for me, really, it's just going to be focus on getting into as many as those qualification races as possible, and try and secure the qualification points to compete in the games then in next August. So.
Okay, brilliant stuff.
Listening to Donnacha talk, I didn't realise how lucky I was that the qualification for us finished in January, because, you know, the end of January was our drop dead date, and I competed at the beginning of January, and there was one more competition that if I hadn't secured a spot, I would have gone to in Holland. I didn't need to do that. But the uncertainty at that point was, you know, it was quite stressful. So hearing you talk, it's taking me back to the feelings that I had at the beginning of last year when we were still looking for places.
Yeah.
And being able to finish that qualification period rather than starting again, I'm counting my blessings and feeling for you.
I think there's a lot of athletes like Donnacha that would be, or like yourself, that would be envious of yourself, Tamsin. A lot of people, there's a lot to play for still, for places.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing. Like I'm not the only athlete in the boat either. There's a lot of other athletes I know that they're still trying to qualify and still trying to vie for places for the games. So, like I think for a lot of athletes, that this year is pretty much a year that's on pause, and just everything's looking to kick back into place in January. So,
brilliant stuff. Okay, so I think we'll leave it there. It was great having both of you. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the best for the rest of the year in 2021, and hope to see you in Tokyo.
Thank you.
Great stuff.